Welcome, my friends. Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Friday, April 29th. We've got a big day lined up for you. We're going to open the phone lines right now, so start dialing 855-950-3835. If you dial right now, I promise you'll get a line. I'll be getting to those calls here in a bit. Let's bring in John. John, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin. Glad to be here.
Welcome back to the program. Seems like we just did this a week ago.
We did. It's like 3 in a row.
I know. This is fun.
I have to warn you, I'm a little busy today, too. I'll give as much as I can, but I might have to bounce when Joel gets here, maybe. Or we'll see. We'll play it by ear. I'm at the racetrack, as usual.
That's fine. So. We love that. I think that's what makes this segment so cool, is you guys are both out doing all of this stuff every day, and I have to interrupt you so you can help us out.
Oh, no problem. It's a lot of fun.
So what's on your mind this week?
Have you made it back to Oregon?
Not quite. I'm closer, let's say that.
Okay. All right.
And
still running well then?
Absolutely beautiful. Like, if you want to, you can set the cruise at 75. I might be in a little more of a hurry this time than normal. And this thing never even slows down or downshifts, ever.
Isn't that nice? Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Do you have a way to manually lock the transmission? Is there a switch to put the transmission into lockup?
No, I actually can't. I only have two options. I have econ mode, which I never use because it really shifts funky in econ mode, or just straight automatic. So if it wanted to downshift, I wouldn't be able to stop it from it. But so far, it hasn't found a hill that it needs to downshift on, even at 75.
That's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not having to downshift.
Yeah, it really is. And it seems like we topped out at about 58 pounds of boost.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, be careful with that.
I am. I only did that.
Yeah.
Only let the crews do that a couple times.
Yeah, those cat cylinder heads aren't as solid as people like to think. Yeah, they tend to crack. So yeah, watch that boost pressure.
Will do. Yep. What's on your mind this week?
I've got some. This project I'm on with the team that I'm working with this year. I'm still with the same team I've been with for 4 or 5 years now. I guess it'll be my 5th season with JDC. But working on a project with a club racing prototype that races in SCCA club racing that is really aero intensive, and we have no rules. We have a box. We have an engine size, a weight, a restrictor that has to be on an engine if we run the engine of a certain size, and everything in the middle we can do whatever we want with.
That sounds like fun. We can use any
materials. We could use anything at all. It is a hoot. It is a hoot. And we're pretty well funded. The owner of the car had a conversation with me this morning and said, if there are any tools, shall we say, that you need, be it sensors, aero sensors, pressure transducers to measure downforce, or pitot tubes, or anything I want for the car. He goes, wow. He said, just get whatever you need. Whatever we get, just do it. So, yeah, this is an interesting situation for me. And it's all the stuff that I've been dreaming of doing to a truck, to be honest with you. Obviously, I'm out here to make downforce as efficiently as I can and keep the thing as slick as it is and can be in a straight line. But, the ability to measure airspeed and different pressures and so forth at different places with the data system is something that I've dabbled with in the past that I know the capabilities of, but something I really, really want to outfit a big rig with. We need to, again, I don't know how we fund the project, but you look at some of the aero stuff that's out there, and I would love to do some serious testing on it with data, not just the data that we get from, filling up our tank and doing the math on the mileage, but exactly what's happening with this stuff.
So let me ask you something, because I know you're very familiar with this, so I know you'll have the answer. When I visited Smart Truck, where were they, in South Carolina or North Carolina?
South Carolina, yeah. They were in South Carolina.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I got a chance to visit them, and when I was in there, they had, I'm pretty sure it was FedEx. They had a tractor and a trailer in there. I can't remember if I think they were just using one of their package pups, running around the city and doing a couple other things. They had more stuff sticking to that truck and trailer than I had ever seen in my life. Is that the kind of stuff we're talking about here?
That's exactly it. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
It was
we
incredible.
Keep it from that on the race car, obviously. Yeah. We integrate those sensors in a nice, neat, manner on the race cars just because we have to. But you could do temporary, placement of that stuff and run the wires and see. Is there, what actually does happen behind the cab? Okay, we've seen some wind tunnel video of that or whatever, but you can put some pressure sensors and airspeed sensors back there and see what's going on in the gap. Exactly. Is there negative pressure? Is there positive pressure? Is there, what's happening there precisely? And then close the gap and get some more data on that. So there's a lot that can be done, and it's just it's addictive. I mean, I'm addicted to data. I think it's the more stuff I can look at and finitely analyze, the better. And I love it in the way that we do it graphically. I put up a time distance plot and it makes a line across it, and at this speed it did this, or it's really, really neat. And then I can overlay those lines, right? I can make a change and using GPS plot out exactly the same places where we are and see exactly what happened there. It's really, really fun to do. And it's just that, one bit of it leads to more. I first started playing with race car data back in the 90s, and just having speed and RPM and gear and brake pressure was huge. Like, to see what the car was doing on the track, like it was just huge, and being able to overlay it, on the track itself. So I'd really like to take that into other places somehow, and quantify what works and what doesn't and why.
We need to talk about that more, because I think between the three of us, you and John and Joel and some of our other partners and people and groups in the industry, NACFE, maybe we could get some funding for something like this. I think it would be worthwhile to at least sit down and kind of map it out and see what kind of funding it would take, and maybe we'll go look and see what we could put together. I've got a question for you. You've done a lot of this already, and now you've got the ability to do even more. How often do you do testing like this and then find out something we thought we knew just isn't true?
Often. You wouldn't believe how often that happens.
I'll bet.
It's I call them happy mistakes. Like,
right.
You'll sometimes call a change to a mechanic on the car, and you'll go with a standard, we always soften to make more grip at that end or whatever, and you'll find that the mechanic turned the wrench the wrong way or did something, and the car goes out and goes faster. And you're like, oh, great, that worked. And then we do at the end of a weekend. So the part of it, you'll like this process, and we will do at the end of a weekend, because we have many adjustments we could make to the car. We'll do what's called a set down. The setup is the setup sheet that I email to the team before a race, and they put all the stuff on the car. And we go and we run, and then at the end of the weekend, they go back to the shop and they do what I call a set down, meaning they just measure everything, just check everything, like just check the camber, check everything that we thought was as on the sheet. And sometimes we find that we went a complete different direction than we thought on a change, and the car was really quick. And that makes me happy, not mad. I'm not mad at the mechanic for making a mistake. I'm glad I learned something. I'm like, that one convention, that one thing we thought we knew.
Right.
Really wasn't as we thought we knew it.
Yeah, and this is complicated stuff, and until you can find ways to measure it, you just do the best you can with the data you have. How many things could we learn about heavy truck fuel economy that we've just been wrong about? I'm sure there are going to be plenty. Or maybe we kind of got it right, but there's a better way. One of the things, you've mentioned this, and it never really clicked with me before, and I'm not sure why, but you said it a different way once recently, so I really started paying attention to it. And I'll say this, I'm passing a lot of these trucks now instead of them passing me. I was in a little more of a hurry. All of this aerodynamic stuff all flapping in the wind.
Yes.
It can't possibly be helping anything.
That's drag. That's creating drag.
Yeah.
If that's not rigid, I see these side skirts on trucks just flapping away, and that's bad. Anyone who knows, Steve could tell you, he knows airplanes. That's just a big no-no. I mean, think about it. When you built model rockets in high school, some of them didn't have parachutes; they had streamers. The streamer slowed the rocket down enough that it didn't crash to the ground and break. It was just a streamer, right? So that's that thing on the side of your truck, on the side of your trailer there. If it's flapping in the wind, it's just like a streamer that keeps your rocket from crashing to the ground too fast when you're a kid.
It's just drag. Yeah.
It's drag. Yeah.
You watch these things going down the road, and I'm like, holy cow, we're doing the exact opposite of what we're trying to do.
And again, all that stuff's there because of SmartWay or because of the tax break the fleet got, whatever. They stuck it on hurriedly. They don't care if they actually got better fuel mileage or not. And it's just there. It's a shame, but it is. And if you look at the numbers Joel gets without aero trailers, I think that's telling you something. The things that I see on trailers, to me, the Smart Truck stuff was the best. Largely because of what you said about them and their instrumentation, and I know the background of some of the guys who were involved there were racers. I mean, they're in motorsport, so they know this process. They've done what I've done. And I believe the one guy was an aeronautical engineer. Even the other one was a race engineer. They had a neat combination of people and a lot of resources at first, and they did like some supercomputer CFD work and things that just big. They drop models into the CFD, which is a simulation software, shall we say, computational fluid dynamics. And it's, would have the same, actually probably more accurate than a wind tunnel, to be honest with you, unless you have enough instrumentation on the wind tunnel.
The thing that impressed me about that was they took me into that room with their computers where, they put all this data in. But then I was blown away because if you have money today, you can build some pretty damn powerful computers without spending insane amounts of money. But from what I gather, there aren't that many computers around that can do this kind of stuff, and they had to rent space on supercomputers to do this.
They did at the government side. They used actually supercomputers that they were literally rented from it was some mega computer in DC that they rented space on to do it.
Yeah.
There's a computer in Canada that's capable of that as well at a company called Multimatic. And those are the only two computers that I know of or have read about that are powerful enough to do this kind of work. And that's what Smart Truck used.
Wow.
And when you look at their solutions that they had come up with, they're simple. It's simple and clean. The diffuser, that little bit that goes in front of the axle, was more effective than those great big skirts that you see on the side of trucks. What they call the ARG, the little laminar flow thing around the back of the trailer.
Yeah.
Like that was way more effective than anything back there, just to fill in the void behind the truck. Think about it. There's a big vacuum back there.
Yes.
So they use laminar flow to just direct some air into it and fill it up. It's interesting stuff. And so I was really impressed with that company. And, I've had numerous ideas. I got some of my madman sketchings I've passed on to Steve and his son to look at. And, it's fun. It's neat stuff. But, I'd love to put a testing program together, play with something. I'm almost at the point where I'm going to buy another rig for the team, and I think I could do this, for my business. I've got a couple of guys who'd like me to haul them around and do some, prep work and look after their cars. And trying to figure out a way to justify or put the budget together to buy, a modern enough truck to be relevant. And, start doing some work on my own. I mean, you know what I'd love to play with? I'd love to play with ride height. I would love to play with lowering the truck a little bit. A splitter and ride height to get the air around it rather than under it, because the underside of the truck, the underside of everything is possibly one of the draggiest surfaces and one of the most important surfaces for us in regard to downforce. But the drag created from the bottom of a car, it's amazing. So that's another one, tires in the underside. So if you could seal that off, the better you seal that off, the better. If you look at like Steve's, he's got that splitter on the front of his truck and the big air dam you see on the front of the Freightliner Evos. It's there. That works. I'm convinced that works. But that's, there are neat things out there that I haven't seen. It'd be so easy to do an active ride height on a rig with air ride all around. It would look cool as hell going down the road. You're on a smooth enough road, just put it on the deck.
Yeah. What's kind of interesting, I've talked about the fact I actually did the first national commercial ever for FedEx. I can't remember if we were even FedEx then, or if we might have been Caliber Logistics at the time. We went from RPS to Caliber Logistics, and then FedEx came in and bought it. I can't remember which phase we were in at the time, but they did their first national commercial. They wanted to film it in Florida because of all the water and the palm trees, and it looks cool. And I had just taken delivery of a new tractor. And when you hooked this tractor to a set of doubles, it looked so damn cool. It was actually a Ford, but it was a single axle sleeper. So the single axle just looks better anyway. And you can get the cab nice and tight back to that pup. And the way that thing sat, it probably had one of the lowest front ends I've ever seen on a truck. And it looked, I mean, and I know we're talking about a 95 Ford here. I know in reality the aerodynamics were nowhere near what we have today, but it looked really aerodynamic. And it looked really cool, and it looked like the front set down really low. I got to go find some pictures of that again.
So that last version of the Ford Louisville with the smooth headlights and stuff really wasn't terrible aerodynamically. It had a nice windshield shape. The one with the composite headlights with the smooth headlights. The very end of that truck, they called it an Aero something, didn't they? Didn't they call it like an Aeromax?
Yeah, it was an Aeromax. Yeah.
It was Aeromax. Yeah, that was a cool truck. I still see a few of those floating around the racing paddock. Every now and then. I have to take pictures of them when I see them.
Here's the thing. This is 1995. That was the first truck, and that had an 11-liter Series 60 in it. And it was oh, no, it didn't. Or did it? Could I still get I'd have to go back and look now. I might be confusing a couple trucks. I'd have to go back and look for sure. Certainly had a Series 60. It's all I ran back then. And I tried to buy the 11 liters for as long as I could. That truck in the mid-90s, I had broke 8 miles to the gallon pulling doubles. And all the statistics I have read say doubles knock 10% off your fuel economy.
Yeah. You have another gap you're dealing with, right? That aero drag alone is going to be terrible on doubles.
And three sets of wheels in there now. The axle on the front trailer, the converter dolly axles and wheels, and then the back trailer. So you're creating more and more points of disturbance with the axles being spread out too. So I've heard 10% is the penalty. So if I was in the low 8s. Technically, if I would have pulled a reasonable van around at the same weight, I might have been close to 9.
Yeah. And again, you didn't do any real work on it either, right? So that was that was interesting. That's cool. I had a Facebook message from Dave Moreau, the guy who's out there kicking ass with a Cascadia right now. He brought up a cool point. That I thought was neat, and I just I go in directions, as you could tell. I get distracted. But you'd mentioned, you just bought that truck. You didn't know anything about fuel mileage at the time. You weren't, you were want to try to be efficient. I'm sure it was in the back of your mind. But you weren't doing any work to do it, and it was a spec that you just, were able to get. It wasn't like you.
Well, no, that one. That one I would have spec'd. I spec'd it with gears. I spec'd it with, I was using whatever. I'd have to go back and look. But I was 91, 92 is when I bought the first Volvo with an 11-liter, and it got such good fuel economy, I got interested and tried to figure out why. So by 1995, that truck I ordered. It was a single axle. I mean, I knew that was a big deal. Why everybody at FedEx still runs tandem axles makes me insane, but let them keep doing it. It makes no sense whatsoever. So it was a single axle. It was the 11 liter. I spec'd it to gear and run in the right RPM. I did, start. I had a bypass oil filter on it, running synthetic oil. I did everything I knew at the time.
Okay, cool. Okay, you did do some work. So the reason I brought this up, Dave sent me a message, and the fact of the matter is that Cascadia is off the shelf. It is not. It's the spec that they're trying to sell. You don't need to get a special anything. You don't need to talk any salesman into selling it to you with that gear. It's anyone can go buy one tomorrow and not have to, sign off on different gearing and do anything like that. So, interesting point about that, and then probably cost a little less than custom specking one. And all the convincing you're going to have to do of the salespeople at the dealership you go to that you're really going to be able to check here and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting point about that. And I just love seeing those things do well. I always thought that truck should do well, just largely based upon the aerodynamics and looks. And when I first read about the DT12, and I guess they've done some tweaking on it since, but I thought it was head and shoulders above anything out there when it came out. Obviously, the I-shift with crawler gears is probably a better solution now, but I can't imagine that Detroit's far behind on that DT12.
I wouldn't think so.
And, some think so. Yeah, I mean, way back when that thing came out, it was using GPS and other things to know if you're on a hill or not, and it was there was some pretty trick stuff involved there. And, so I'm glad to see those guys doing well. And, yeah, the interesting thing, like I said, it's you could buy it. It's the spec they're trying to sell. You don't have to talk them into selling it to you.
Yeah.
Which is what I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm glad to see we're there finally, or getting there at least.
Yep.
Good. All right.
And,
well,
I'm loving the mirror thing taking off too. The mirrors thing, the getting rid of the mirrors thing, I think is fantastic. I think that is so cool.
I do too. Can't believe it took us this long.
Yeah.
Really, I mean that makes me a little crazy. Look at these super truck projects that have been around, and they're usually the first ones that get these kind of exemptions from the DOT, but they also spend like $15 million to do the same damn thing some of us have been doing for years on no budget at all.
Right.
That's
amazing.
For all the money they've spent on some of these projects, they really haven't come up with much practical that we're using in the world today.
No, they haven't. No.
Yeah.
No, they really have. They showcase some interesting stuff, and some of it does make it to the road. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you justify it. I really don't. That kind of expenditure on those projects. I'm glad they do it. I mean, they waste money on worse things, I think. But,
yep, true.
Still, it still doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to scream, just give us 1/10 of that and watch us go.
Oh, if I had, a couple $1 million in a truck, I realize that's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but compared to what they do, give me a new truck and a couple $1 million budget, which is, believe it or not, kind of a racing budget.
Right.
So,
I know. Yeah.
One team will burn through that a year, no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, nice, fresh, whatever, and okay, give me a couple $1 million to go run it. Would have to run it. Would outfit it with everything we could, data wise. Would do everything we know works and quantify it with that data, or find out maybe it didn't work, which could happen. I'm not proud. I'll when something I think works doesn't. I'm the first one to be happy about it. All right, move on.
Yeah. And here would be the end result. At the end of whatever time it took us to do all of this, we would have a practical recommendation on how to go out and buy a truck today that got really good fuel economy. Not something that's not going to happen for 10 or 15 more years.
Right. And I mean really good, like 10 or 12.
Right.
Like that's, that's like really, really good.
Yeah.
Like business, it changed the industry good. Yeah.
Well, I can remember back in 2007, I think it was, I might be a year or two off, Walmart committed to getting 15 miles to the gallon by 2015. And they made a big deal out of it,
Right.
and then it just went away. And they did a super truck project, and it was pretty damn cool, and they had some really cool stuff on it. But what happened? Where did it all go?
Yeah, they just gave up.
And nobody
I
talks
guarantee they
about
just gave up.
15 miles to the gallon anymore, except maybe Joel
Right.
or Henry
It-
or
you know,
Steve
it would
or,
be-
some of the real extreme people
Right.
might be dreaming about 15, but, 15 is going to take some serious money and some serious testing to get to.
Right. And how do you maybe they just did the math and couldn't get it back. But if the high fuel price is maintained for like a long time, that might happen again.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a cheap fuel on the horizon enough to
Well-
do it, or is it electric trucks on the horizon now that make them not do it? Yeah, who knows?
I know. And, here's the other thing. I've always said I actually prefer to fail at goals. I want to set them so damn big, I'm almost positive I'm going to fail. But if we set a goal to get to 15 and we got to 12 and a half instead, would that really be a failure?
That's okay. Not at all.
No.
Not one bit. Yeah,
Right.
That's a job, yeah.
Right. So
Yep.
so set the bar high so you have to work a little harder at it.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
Let's throw Joel into the mix and find out what happened, and then all three of us can talk over each other because that's what we do because we all want to talk and we all have a lot to say. Joel, welcome back.
Hey, man, I'm dealing with 2 lanes, roundabouts, and DOT officers in beautiful New England. So I'm just loving life today.
Well, you're laughing and you're happy, so you must have fared well with the DOT officers.
I had no doubt. Yeah. Cruise through that just a blip. Yeah.
Yeah, I said you would.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
back on the road and getting up to my last customer to drop my last batch of furniture, and then hopefully get my backhaul on yet today and be home Saturday at some point.
There you go. So what else you got going on?
That's the plan. Oh, I've got some pretty cool stuff. We have a new safety device that we are deploying fleet-wide called Driver Eye. Really, really cool. It's a forward-facing camera, and it does look backwards a little bit. It goes to about the steering wheel. It's got 2 cameras off to the side that are wide angle, so it basically gets the dash. It doesn't look completely back into the truck, so if somebody's doing something that they're doing, we're not going to see it. We probably don't want to see it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so that's kind of nice, but it's really cool because a lot of the metrics for safety coincide with efficiency. So acceleration rates, following distances, all the things that apply to safety also apply to efficiency.
That's a good point.
And this gives you some really, really nice reports in addition to capturing video that I'm going to be able to pair with my pedal coach information and all that real deep drill down stuff I can do to really gather some convincing data on how speed impacts efficiency and productivity and whatnot. So I'm really looking forward to get my head around this thing and everything that it can do, and it's going to be fun.
Awesome. You just reminded me of something. I want to jump in and interrupt you because that's what we do on this show. I used to recommend, one of my recommendations for fuel economy, I used to recommend people go take the Smith System driver training. Have you ever been through that one?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I used to say all the time, it will help you be a safer driver. It just reminds you of things you should have known anyway and you should have been taught at some point. But I say, more importantly, it will improve your fuel economy if you drive this way.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There is a direct correlation between safe driving and fuel efficiency, no doubt about it. The thing that people have a problem getting their head around is how does it impact productivity? And that's the harder thing to judge, because it's a lot harder for people to track productivity in most instances. And I've got some tools here that I can really drill down on, average speeds on the highway, overall averages. I can get some real detail on how it's impacting productivity. And so that's pretty damn cool.
Well, and I think you're a great test case for something like this, because you do a lot of multi-stop stuff where that productivity is even more critical.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You've got to manage your time, and you've got to be on top of things. And if you're not, you get behind. You'll never catch up. So, yeah, you're exactly right.
Well, good stuff. Good stuff.
That's interesting. Hey, Joel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, go ahead, John.
Trying to avoid stepping on anybody here, but again, I blurt out thoughts from time to time. Kevin, like the Garmin watch, and Joel, that unit of yours, is there any way to possibly pair that with the biometrics, like of a Garmin, so you could track driver stress as well?
Well,
I realize that could possibly infringe upon some personal freedoms, but
I would love to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because I think that stress and productivity and all the things drivers go through on a daily basis, all this ties together, and you really have to have an understanding of this in order for a company like Kloger to improve the driver's experience and their quality of life on the road and whatnot. So the speed impact your stress level, your blood pressure, what is it doing, and what is the real world impact of just driving faster.
Right.
I think it would surprise a lot of people, honestly, and I'd love to be able to collect all that data and tie this all together.
I mean, obviously you couldn't force your drivers to do it, but if they volunteered to, or if they were willing to, I mean, it would, I think that would be a home run. And again, Kevin, that would work into the app idea I had as well. I mean, you could work all the biometrics into that.
Yeah, it would.
And I know Garmin pairs seamlessly with many different things like that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if you work it all in, the human factor, the stress factor. You get the stress numbers on the guy and watch his fuel numbers tank. It would be interesting to see that.
Yeah, and so far my experience with the people I work with at Garmin, they love this kind of stuff. They love this really specialty kind of niche stuff where, they can use their data to make improvements. So that's certainly something I'll approach them with.
And in the bigger picture, from a fleet standpoint, we lost 3 drivers this year, 2 in the truck and then 1 at home, all heart attack issues, with heart issues and whatnot. So for us as a fleet, I think it's imperative that we really get our mind around this and really start to understand how stress is impacting our employees, and then doing everything we can to mitigate that stress level.
Hey, Joel, how many drivers do you have?
70.
70. So one of the things I figured out a long, long time ago on fuel mileage and other things was I hate working with fleets. I hate it so much I completely gave it up. I figured, that's where all the money is. If I can help a single truck owner-operator save $10,000 a year in fuel, why aren't I working with 100 truck fleets? Because the numbers are incredible. But after a year or two of trying, I figured out why I didn't work with 100 truck fleets, because they're a major pain in the ass and nothing ever gets done. And it was a horrible experience. But then here we are now, we're doing something around health, driver health, which is so important. And I keep getting tempted to go back to the fleets because my goal, I want to reach more people with this. We know it works. We've proven it works. We've proven it can be done easily on the road. And I want to spread it. And some mornings I wake up and go, maybe you should develop a fleet program. And then I whack my thumb with a hammer and go, no, remember what that felt like? Don't do that again. But I could see, a company like yours that's really into this kind of stuff. Would they be interested in some sort of a health program?
Most likely, I'll tell you, the fleets that are managed by people that have actually drove trucks, they are generally receptive to this stuff. The bigger fleets that are managed by bean counters and bookkeepers and accountants, they have no tolerance for this type of stuff. This is stuff that just costs them time and money, and it doesn't fit in with their economy of scale concept of how to manage a fleet.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Doesn't.
So I kind of knew there's a sweet spot out there somewhere, and it's not just the size of the company. It's part of it, but it's also what you just said. Who manages this? How close are they still to the drivers and that lifestyle? And then the challenge was, okay, now how much time do you have to go spend to find these companies and sell the concept? And but maybe as part of all this stuff we're doing, maybe at some point we should talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm probably one of the few people in the position that, we're involved with fleet management that actually supports the idea of drivers, getting overtime and disconnecting mileage pay because we're regulated by the hour. I think drivers should be paid by the hour if you're regulated by the hour. I think that impacts their safety, their stress level when you're paid by the mile and regulated by the hour. So all kinds of things in that regard that, we could probably work on.
Well, let me throw out one other concept that every time I talk to the industry, I've brought this up, whether it's, at the TCA or, big fleets I've worked with or whatever. And, I kind of challenge them with this, and they all stare back at me like a deer in headlights. I thought, here's the thing. What are the two biggest costs in trucking? Wages and fuel. And the fuel price determines which one's number one and number two. Right now, fuel is the number one cost for a fleet. If fuel drops below $3.50 a gallon or $4 a gallon, I forget the exact number, and there's some variables, but then wages become number one. But it's clear, wages and fuel are 1 and 2, and they just switch back and forth now and then based on fuel price. So why in the hell do we have a system that puts those two things in conflict? The absolute best way to get better fuel economy is just slow the hell down. It works just about every single time.
Here is the point. The trucking industry since deregulation was solely driven by productivity. There is no time value equated with the driver. None.
Right.
There's just not. It's by the mile. So it does not pay a driver to slow down.
No.
So when you really look at the safety, health, and fuel efficiency are all interconnected. There is no doubt about that. All three are interconnected. And when we pay people by the mile and we regulate them by the hour, stress levels go up, fuel economy goes down, and safety suffers. There's no question about that. Nobody can argue that, but yet we still do it. And then we bitch and complain we can't hire drivers and they're dying off and we can't keep them in the truck. It's just amazing.
And if without any argument, we could also throw in maintenance cost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd actually talked to my brother about that. You had mentioned how does speed impact maintenance costs, and we're going to try and put some numbers together. I don't know how much he wants to give away on this, but I'll get what I can get and then share it with everybody. And it's eye-opening, though. Speed absolutely drives maintenance costs through the roof.
Yep. Yep. It's shocking when we talk about this the way we just did. How could we be any wronger in the way we do things?
Oh, it is. It's a complete disaster, and it's unsustainable. I mean, we've got 200% driver turnover. We've got wages that are all over the board. There's no uniformity. There's no value placed on drivers' time. Shippers and receivers could care less how long you're sitting somewhere. They just don't care because there's no motivation to care. It's just always been a per mile thing with no time attached, no time value attached.
Let me read something for you. I read it at my open. I know both of you guys were busy, but I just got this email from Noel Perry, who has been analyzing the trucking industry for as long as the trucking industry's been around. I pulled one quote out from this email he sent me. Listen to this. Combine bad energy, what he means is high fuel prices, combine bad energy, bad inflation, add in bad global politics, and you have the most threatening economic environment for trucking since at least 1980. Well, what that really tells us is we have the most threatening economic environment in trucking ever, because you can't compare anything in trucking prior to 1980 to trucking today. They're two totally different industries.
Correct.
One was heavily financially regulated, and this one isn't. So it's like this trucking industry that we're in started in 1981 under deregulation, and Noel Perry saying this is the most threatening economic environment ever. Maybe we really need to revisit with the industry this topic we're talking about right now.
Oh, there is no doubt. And look, I get people jump all over me the second I bring up any type of regulation in the industry. I am not for the heavy-handed type of regulation we had, in the 70s, the 60s, and the 70s. I am not for that. But we do need to get some things straight here, because drivers are bearing the brunt of this, especially company drivers. And if we take care of company drivers and we get some uniform wage protection or guarantees in place for company drivers, that's only going to help owner operators, because wages will have to come, or rates will have to come up to accommodate the wage protection. And it should come up. We're just doing things too damn cheap. Even though rates are high, we're still too cheap. And I think the industry numbers prove that out. I look at our accident rate, look at the nuclear verdicts, look at the turnover rate, the churn rate. Every statistic you look at in this industry says we suck.
Yeah, we do. We do, and it's time. It's time to fix that.
Yeah, it is. It's past time. This should have been dealt with 20 years ago. But better to start now than never. And I think where you start is disconnecting the pay schemes that want to pay by the mile or percentage. If you're going to regulate somebody by the hour, you damn well better pay them by the hour, and that includes overtime. The company drivers should get that. That is the starting point to everything, because now a company driver can slow down or be delayed, and he doesn't have to get shot to shit because I can't get 28 gazillion miles to make a decent paycheck.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And so when you think about that, what it's doing is it puts public safety at risk, and that has to be the number one concern. And our accident rate and these mega pileups that we've seen are just proving the point that we put productivity over safety.
Well,
and that should never happen.
And John, I know you want to jump in here. I'm going to make one more comment, and then you jump in. So I think most people know how I feel about government regulation. I'm very anti-regulation. I like free markets. I like the market to decide things. But every industry is heavily regulated already. What I want is regulations that actually make some sense. We try to regulate safety, but we do stupid things like you just described. Well, let's scrap a whole bunch of those stupid safety regulations we already have that aren't working, and let's go back to the root cause of why drivers have become so unsafe. And they have been. I don't even like being out on the road with them anymore.
Man, some of the stuff I've caught on my little camera here just in the last couple of days, it's embarrassing for the industry.
It is.
It really is.
It is. So I'm not asking to pile on a bunch of new regulations. I'm asking to rework all the stupid regulations we already have that don't work.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it doesn't make any difference. Conservative, liberal, it's not about your ideology. It's about being smart and using some common sense regulations that are going to improve the industry across the board for everybody, drivers, fleets, shippers and receivers, and the motoring public at large.
There you go. John, jump in. I know you had something there.
I was going to back way up to your selling health to fleets. And Kevin, the ones that will probably be receptive are the ones that we see now. We see some progressive fleets that are, adopting Arrow, and you've got guys like Nussbaum and MVT that always come to mind that are really on it and looking for every dime they can get. That would probably be really receptive to you. I mean, you get to go to Yellow. The ones who participate in the NACFE stuff that run on less guys, and if they're that serious about fuel mileage and efficiency, you got to believe they got to care about health and driver retention and, especially if it finds them another tenth or two of a mile per gallon. Think about that, yeah. So I think you've got an opening there. The whole regulated by the hour and driving the miles is ridiculous, and it's not. A lot of people like to blame the ELD, but the ELD is just enforcing laws that were already there. You know what I mean? It's not like if someone was pulling it off before. I mean, I know my race rig had 2 or 3 logbooks in it at all times. I mean, it did. I mean, and Ray, my truck driver, if he had to be somewhere, and he made it. It didn't matter. But the fact of the matter is, he's breaking the law. It's not like that's anything new. It's just coming to a head now because people are no longer breaking the law because it's a lot harder to. And it makes sense. And the drivers really need to be paid by the hour. I agree 100%. And one of the things that opened my eyes to that was my visit to the Peterbilt plant back in December. And that plant was built in the mid to late 80s, and it was one of the very first that adopted the just-in-time philosophy, meaning that they don't warehouse anything there. There are docks, trucks back up with wiring harnesses, trucks back up with cab parts, interior parts. All the plastics come from wherever they were molded in another truck. So the building itself is not huge, but there are, I believe it's the south and the east side of it are nothing but loading docks. And they literally work out of the trucks. So it's impossible for you to not get stuck there at some point. And when Steve had his little run-in with Ford there a few weeks ago and got stuck wherever he was at a Ford plant, it's just-in-time manufacturing, which sometimes is going to cause a truck to sit there for a while. It's just the way it's going to be. And the guy's got to be paid for that. That really, I don't know. I'm not even a truck driver. That irks me when I hear about this retention time thing. That is just awful. The guy knows what it takes. He's not on the road, and you got him sitting there.
You know what's ironic about just-in-time deliveries is that if you are the carrier and you hold up that factory, you've got to pay every one of their employees. But if they hold up your truck, they tell you to go pound salt.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I've been... I kind of avoided this subject for a lot of years because I primarily worked with owner-operators, and my point for them is, look, you can go scream about this all you want. It's probably not going to change. If anybody's going to get this changed, it's going to be the big fleets or the big associations, and as a small business owner, deal with it. Find a better customer, stop going to those places, use what control you have. So it's one of those things I didn't even know how to address it or approach it. So in my market, I thought there's more important things we could be doing. But now I'm to the point where the trucking industry is such a mess that we can't keep ignoring that, even if and I am far more interested in the entire industry now and the health of drivers, and all of this stuff is absolutely tied together.
And what's really cool nowadays versus even 10 years ago, we have so much real data and the ability to collect efficiency data, dwell time data, and now even how the stress level goes up when the dwell time goes up and how that impacts drivers' health and the safety of the motoring public. Even a smaller fleet can really put together a very powerful presentation on why things need to change. And we could have never done that 10 years ago.
Yeah. Good. It's interesting, everything the three of us talk about and what we get excited about, how we could change this or we could change that, we can improve this. Every single thing we talk about comes back to data. We all had these same ideas 20, 25 years ago. We just didn't have the data to do anything about it, no way to get the data.
That's exactly right. I could go out on the road and come back, and my brother was in the office, and I'll say, well, that really stuck because of this, this, and this. But I had no way to prove exactly what was going on,
right,
other than it just felt wrong. Now you can prove every bit of it, even to the point where, like you said, we can start looking at stress levels of drivers and how that impacts their health.
Yeah. And their safety. You're a stressed out driver is a dangerous driver. Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So I think that nowadays, a group of 3 people, like, we can move mountains.
I think
today,
so.
Where before, we had no hope of doing anything.
Yep.
So I'm all for getting involved in something like that. Being a driver that, I run 125,000 miles a year most years, sometimes more. I've driven over 4.5 million miles, and I can tell you I got in right after deregulation, and I can remember the guys that in the early 70s to the mid 70s, they lived well. They made decent money and they lived well. I got in the industry and I'm like, what's wrong here? And I was young and didn't realize that, I was getting my ass kicked and they were taking advantage of me. So you just done it because you love to drive. And,
exactly.
And it was problematic, no doubt.
I won't say I yearn for those days, but there was a dark side to the regulated era, obviously. But where we were here in Pittsburgh, with all the steel around and runs between Pittsburgh and Gary, were nonstop. I just started at the diesel shop with Bruce's just at the beginning of deregulation, shall we say. I started there in '84. And we had some guys that were making a hell of a living. If you were an owner-operator, had your own authority, back in the late mid-'80s, these guys were knocking down, 150, 200 grand a year. Like, these guys were making big money. And they almost went out of business. I mean, it disappeared seemingly overnight to me because I came in at the tail end of it. Some of those guys were still doing pretty well, but by 86, 87, they were gone. Those guys, nice shiny beats and were making 150 a year. They were also running the coast without sleeping and stealing fuel from company trucks and parking lots and things. I remember climbing under a truck once. A guy had a pneumatic powered, great big hydraulic pump and a hose mounted under his cab. And he said it'd be pulling to he called it a cornflake truck, a consolidated freight truck, or a yellow or whatever everyone hated back then. And he had back in beside him in the truck stop, and it did throw it in there so he could empty his tanks in 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and I will say I got in right when it was probably 86 is when I bought my first truck. So I gave a statistic this morning I'll come back to. The only thing I'll say about prior to deregulation was the worst part about the system, which made it all null and void to me, was it was some government agency that decided winners and losers.
It was overly regulated. There's no doubt about that.
You couldn't get authority. You couldn't get authority. You had to go buy it. You had to go buy it, and that was just wrong.
The guys who played the game, who did it, they kicked ass. There was some of it was hilarious, and we watched. I'll tell you that business back then, the diesel injection as it was called then. We would have guys. It was like this big pissing contest to see who could get over Cuyahoga the fastest. And if someone got passed, if we had one of our guys who got passed, they were back at the shop the next day for another turbo or for whatever. It was crazy. These are guys who had their own regulation. It was just, they'd be on the phone, so-and-so passed, what'd you do to his truck? Like, I want it done to mine. Like, it was hilarious.
Hey, John.
And that was the cornerstone of the business. That's how it all went down. It was hilarious.
John, we could say the same thing about Joel and Henry and Steve Crone, but it's what do you mean he got 2 more tenths of a mile per gallon? Give me that, damn it!
This is true.
It's even more. I really do. I like the efficiency even more. Yeah, it was the same vibe. It really was.
Yeah.
And again, and you see it. And I hope it doesn't go away, but you are seeing it again now where guys who hustle, guys like Steve, really are doing well as owner-operators,
yes.
right? So they have, it's taken nearly 30 years as far as I'm concerned, or maybe more. It's been good for a while, but to get back to that point where there are guys who are kicking ass like they did back then. Back then, they scratched whoever's back or paid whatever they paid for their authority and, played the game to get what they got, but they they were good. I mean, those guys were. It was formative years for me, So to meet that and see that, and it was cool.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was for me too. 2 points, and then we might actually take a phone call. So if you want to start lining up calls, we have one. We can probably take some more. 2 points. One, they did have another advantage back then that we no longer have today. Amphetamines were legal.
Did them too. I'm telling you, some of the stories that tell me. Yeah.
My dad did.
It was something.
Yeah. There used to be a bowl of Black Beauties on the breakfast table. And then, then the other crazy statistic that I quoted this morning, as of right now, van rates are down 89 cents since their peak. And I got
100% right.
Yeah, 89 cents. And fuel was up, another 54 cents this week, if you add up all the increases this week. So rates were down 89 cents from their peak. The first contract I sold was like 71 or 72 cents a mile is what I got paid total. Total. The rates have dropped more than I used to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy stuff. Let's grab a phone call, and four of us can talk over each other. Let's go to Georgia. Alan, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin, how are you guys?
Good, but you've got to come back to the phone. You sound like you're a mile away.
Okay, how's this? Here, hold on. Is this better?
That's better. Now I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Cool. Okay, guys. Since all three of you are there now, riddle me this. On February 24th, my husband and I, we run dedicated for UPS through Landstar, and we picked up a pup in Houston to bring it back to Atlanta. We moved our fifth wheel back 4 notches, 4 inches. From February 25th through till now, we have gained a full mile per gallon on our fuel mileage, and we're in fuel gauges, so I can prove it. We don't understand.
So,
we moved the fifth wheel back 4 inches and gained a full mile to the gallon.
Well, hold on, and I'll tell you the first thing that comes to my mind, and you can tell me if it's a possibility or not. What part of the country do you spend most of your time in?
I-20 and below.
So we know one of the things that's changed in the last couple of years is that part of the country now sees some pretty nasty winter weather. Slush and snow and freezing rain, and we have winter fuel. And temperatures were much, much colder, which people don't realize how, John, you can probably explain this really well, how dense air gets when it gets cold and how hard it is to push through. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is the moving the fifth wheel had some sort of an impact, probably a small negative impact, but a mile per gallon gain would not be hard coming out of winter conditions and winter fuel.
But again, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, but see, we've taken that into consideration. We've had this truck for almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years this August. When it's a DD13 Freightliner Cascadia with just regular tires, regular wheels, or the duals. This truck is consistently, for 3.5 years, ran in the mid-7s, and we've done a couple of improvements. We put on the Fleet Air filter at Pittsburgh Power 2.5 years ago. And we had the Dorothy on there, hoping that we could solve some of our EGR problems with that. It didn't solve anything. We ended up taking that back off a year ago. But like I said, we've been running this route now for 18 months, and we've never been able to get over that 7.5, 7, 8 miles to the gallon. Now we're consistently running 8.5 to 8.8, and I've tried to take all of those things into consideration, but none of it's ever changed. It continues to be better and better every single week. So I didn't know if moving the fifth wheel made any kind of an impact, or if we were just got the truck healthy enough that we're running into a sweet spot now that it's going to stay consistent like that.
Have you put new tires or changed the tires on the truck lately?
Nope. These tires have almost 350,000 on them.
Okay, so they're getting wore down pretty good. So that part alone compared to when
they're not wore down at all. We'll get at least another year and a half out of them. They are really in good shape. But we keep our pressure up to 120 on them.
Well, as tires wear, everybody just needs to be aware. As they wear, obviously they get smaller, and unless you're going in and adjusting your dash to accommodate for that change in size and diameter, your odometer is not accurate, and the calculation on the dash is not going to be accurate. Will that throw it a mile a gallon? No, but a deep lug tire that's wore 3/4 of the way down can throw that number a half mile a gallon.
And when
it's up to a half mile a gallon.
And there's two things that happen when that tire wears down, and I have a chart somewhere, but I believe from the time the tire is new till you get it to 20% of tread left, there's a 30% improvement in rolling resistance. So we have an incorrect calculation, which makes it look better, and we have a true gain because we have less rolling resistance the more rubber we wear off that tire. Here's the thing. We could go back to the fifth wheel, and Joel, you tell me if I'm even in the ballpark on this. We could put it at the optimal, where we know this is the absolute best it's ever going to get. And then we could take it and we could move it 2 feet back from that, and you wouldn't lose a mile per gallon.
No, it won't be a mile a gallon, but it would be enough you would notice it. 4 inches, you'd be very, very hard pressed to pick that up with a single truck operation, track and fuel mileage. Maybe, but I don't think that has anything to do with it. A 4-inch move on your fifth wheel. There's other things at play here. Exactly what it is. Not being involved with the truck on a day-to-day basis and not knowing everything that's going on, it's truly hard to say. I would start, you're just kind of looking at that tire size. They do get more efficient as they wear, and the calculation is off as they wear unless you've adjusted for it. Most people don't, and so they love it when their tires start to wear down. They're thinking, man, I am kicking butt, and then they put new tires on and they're crying the blues.
So
yeah.
So let
change these tires. It's like, well, we're coming up on 2 years, and I'm like, no, we are not changing these tires this summer. We are hanging on to them until they are
So all right, let me speculate.
A couple of thoughts.
Oh, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I don't agree with anything you're saying there, especially the tire size deal. That's something, and I'm sorry the Dorothy didn't work out for you. That was the DD13 is a pretty clean running engine, and it usually some of the 15s it picks some stuff up in, but the 13s are really clean. That thing works best on a Cummins. A dirty old ISX they work fantastic on, but other engines tend to be clean enough to not need it. So did you change? Okay.
No. Go ahead. Did I change what?
Oh, so you said you picked up a new trailer. Is it a different trailer than you were hauling before?
No, we run a dedicated for UPS, and we're changing trailers at every single hub that we stop at. So
Okay, all right. Okay.
We just set it back to haul a pup, and then I forgot to set it back where we usually have it. And like I said, that's where that change. I mean, you can see it. It's so definitive on the push gauges.
But you're hauling a pup now and not a full-length trailer?
No. Yeah, every week is a new adventure in trailers with UPS.
Okay, all right. Well, because that's to me, that's a bigger variable than anything we're talking about.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But they're changing enough so that just kind of washes itself out.
Better,
Yeah. So let me kind of see if I could tell the story of how this may have occurred to get to this mile per gallon change. That seems like it was one thing, and probably wasn't. So we've identified, as the tires wear out, the calculation becomes inaccurate. As the tires wear out, they get a little more efficient. We are coming out of winter weather and winter fuel. And I know you've done that prior and you didn't see this kind of, but sometimes these things all come together at once. Here's something else, and every driver I ever talk to will deny that this is happening, but I absolutely know it's happening. I've proved it. As your fuel mileage gets better, you work harder at it. You focus on it more. You focus on it more.
Hey, guys, real quick. I got to bounce. I got a car on track in 10 minutes. I got to get to my pit lane station there. So enjoy talking to you all. Glad to be here again. Oh, you're welcome. Great to talk to you again. All right.
Great stuff, John. Thanks. So yeah, back to that thought. One of the challenges I used to give people was, all I want you to do for 30 days is track every tank of fuel accurately on fuel gauges. Don't do anything else. Don't make any changes to your truck. Don't change the way you drive. We just want to get a 30-day average. And in the beginning, I didn't know what was going to happen. All I was trying to do was establish a good baseline. So, because that's the starting point of really knowing if you're making improvements or not. And I started seeing this pattern.
Right.
I'd follow people while they're doing this, and in the 30 days, their fuel mileage would improve. And I would tell them, I told you not to do anything. We didn't, I swear, we didn't change anything. Yes, you did. It was such a clear pattern. But it was the fact that as they focused on it, it started to get better. And when it got better, they got more excited and more focused on it, and it kept getting better.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what's happened with us is that it got to the point where I used to dread having to get onto fuel gauges to put in our fuel, because I'm like, why can't we get this truck to get any better? I mean, we've got the air filter. We've got, we keep it really close eye on our tires. We're always driving really conservatively. And now it's like, I can't wait. I mean, literally, I cannot wait to put it in, because it's like, 9 miles a gallon. This is so awesome. It really is. It's really nice to know that, and especially now that fuel prices are up, we're actually, for the last 2 months, we're actually under our fuel surcharge.
Awesome.
Which is amazing.
That is.
Yeah, because they don't give a good fuel surcharge.
So we all know
it's a really good run.
We all know what the placebo effect is, right?
Yep.
This is actually called the nocebo effect.
There you go.
That works.
We see that exact same trend with the pedal coach. So I trained my stepson for a year and a half, and I showed him every trick that I knew. And when he was with me, he was a solid 9 mile a gallon driver. When I kicked him out into his own truck, he went right down to 7.
Wow.
And he was there for about a year and a half. And then I said, okay, Trav, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to put the pedal coach in your truck. And he went to a 9.5 mile a gallon driver overnight.
Wow.
Just because he had something to challenge him and to concentrate on. And the pedal coach scores your behavior. And so when it's cold and into wintertime, you can see his behavior kind of drop a little bit. And then when it gets warm, like you're talking about, you can tell he's getting excited because his score's going way up. So it absolutely, coming out of winter weather, there's a lot of real tangible things you can point to that say it increases, but it's attitude that also really increases your fuel efficiency as the weather gets nicer. You're just in a better mood, so you do a better job.
Yeah, that was the week after we had to sit 18 hours on the highway in Texas because of an ice storm.
Yeah,
ice storm. Yeah,
down there. that was nasty. And to have that happen the week later, it was like, oh, this is amazing. I can't believe it. But I can't think of a better time for this to be happening for us, particularly because of the fuel prices. It'll make an owner-operator really, really cringe right now. You know, it's scary stuff. So I'm thankful it's happening. I'm just hoping it stays like this. And I have one more question.
Sure.
How do I get into the 9 mile an hour or the 9 mile per gallon club? Do I actually have to be at the 9, or can I be working toward the 9 to get in there? I want to be in there so bad.
You can get in there at 4 miles a gallon. On the Facebook group, you can just send a request, and on the social media site here, you can just send a request. We'll get you in.
Yeah.
No requirement. No requirement. We'll get you in.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah, see,
we on there, which I was stunned about, but
we understand truck drivers. If you actually had to get 9 miles to the gallon to be in the club, they would all just lie.
Sure that. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. You all have a great weekend, and we'll be listening on Monday.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Great stuff. Yeah, Joel, you and I have seen that kind of stuff over and over and over, where a bunch of things all come together at once, and it's really hard to kind of get through the noise and figure it out. But I think we've got a pretty good idea of what caused all that.
Yeah, fuel efficiency oftentimes just comes down to attitude and optimization. It really does. It doesn't have to be, a whole bunch of things that you do to your truck. Get your attitude right, optimize what you have first. Then when you start laying down numbers, then you can start to tinker and play with things that you think may improve it. But really, attitude. It truly is. You've got to believe that you're going to get this done, and this is what my number is going to be. If you don't have that attitude going in, you might as well forget about it. All the other stuff in the world is not going to help you.
That's a good point, and it's something else I keep looking at year after year after year, and this may explain it, is the fact that it's almost criminal to me that the average fuel economy in trucking is still somewhere in the 6s. How can that be?
Yeah, really.
Come on. 25 years ago, we could beat that without even trying that hard. And the technology hasn't improved so much. But what hasn't changed is the attitude of drivers. And we just spent a whole show talking about it. The attitude is run hard, run fast, get the job done, screw fuel economy. Right.
Yep. When we're regulated the way we are and paid the way we are, you're automatically in a bad mood when you walk out the door. I mean, you just are. It just sucks. And you really can't concentrate on efficiency as a company driver because you're being paid for productivity and nothing else.
Right. Yep. It's, I think we solved some world problems today.
There you go.
Or at least we came up with some ideas on how to. Now we just have to go do it.
No, seriously though, I really think there's some things that we can do as, just a smaller, group of individuals coming together, just because now we can track information and collect data that in the past only the mega fleets could collect. In fact, we can probably do a better job of it and put together a more comprehensive report, just simply because we're out here living this day to day.
Yes.
Where you've got a bunch of the guys sitting in the ivory tower that they're looking at data and analyzing it. And you can only analyze data to a certain degree. If you're not out here living it and experiencing and understanding what's going on, you're not truly going to be able to put together a good solution for the industry, in my opinion.
No, you're right. And here's something else to think about. When you say maybe just the three of us could do even more than a big fleet or a big group or whatever. And one of the things I've always said, and there's so many examples of it, Apple would not be Apple without Steve Jobs. One person. One. Not a committee, not a group somewhere, not an entire management team. Apple would not be Apple without Steve Jobs. Tesla would not be Tesla without Elon Musk. one person usually is what makes the difference. Too many companies today are run by committee and groups and meetings, and it takes a strong leader or a very strong leadership team to really turn these big things around. So the three of us, we're talking about this. We have the experience, we have the knowledge, and all three of us have also created some pretty damn strong relationships with other people and companies that have the kind of resources that we could marshal and lead, but it requires leaders.
I agree. There's something to be said for somebody having grassroots experience in the industry and working with other people at the grassroots level to put together solutions rather than just analyzing data as it flows in off the trucks with somebody that may be very technically astute but has no idea, doesn't know the difference between a steering wheel and a fifth wheel. You know what I mean? And so I think that is a huge advantage if you're serious about wanting to make changes in the industry. You bring the type of experience together that, us three as a group have. I think that's a pretty powerful tool.
It is. So I'm glad we're talking about this. I want to talk about it more. We are going to wrap this up. We'll let you get to your day so you can get that backhaul on and start heading west and get back home. Joel? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Cut off for just a second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll talk about all this stuff some more. I'm looking forward to it. I think we.
Oh, yeah, we're losing
for everybody.
There you go. All right, we're losing you. I'm going to cut you loose. Let you get on with your day. I'm going to get on with mine, and it's been a great week. Really liked a lot of the shows this week. A lot of exciting stuff going on. I know. My open today was kind of negative. My, take on the economy and the industry for the last year or so has been pretty negative. My take on the government, what's going on in our country has been kind of negative. But you have to identify the problem. You have to face the problem and admit that it's a problem and things are wrong. And I've really been trying to get more and more people to look at that and see. And then we can start fixing it. And I think that's where we're at now. We're at that turning point. It's time to start fixing things. And there's a lot of things to fix. And again, I'm going to ask you for your support in that. Head on over to truckingtribe.com if you're not a member, healthytribe.com, and letstruck.com. Also, if I think everybody listening to me, I don't know if it makes any sense for me to say this to all the people that are listening, but just in case, or if you want to pass this along to somebody else, if you want to make sure you don't miss an episode, and we're going to be adding new shows and new episodes, and they're going to be at different times and days, and our app will be out, which will make a huge improvement in this soon. But if you want to stay connected and know what's going on and know when we're doing shows, get out your phone right now or grab something at least to write with, and I'll tell you how to do it, and then you can share it with others. That's another way you can support us. We're getting really close. We're still not mass, marketing the new network and the new show because we're not quite ready yet, but we're really, really getting close every day. So if you grab your phone and you send a text to this number, so put this number in your phone to send a text to, 855-997-3835. I'll give you that number one more time, 855-997-3835. And here's all you need to put in the text. One word, tribe. That's it. Put tribe, hit send. Within less than a minute, you should get a response. And you have total control over this text. You can stop them at any time. In fact, every time we send you a message, part of the message tells you exactly how to stop it. You just type stop back. That's it. And then you can start it up again if you want. We don't want to spam you. We don't want to send you a bunch of notifications you don't want. So we always give you complete control over what you get from us. Thanks again for your support. It's been awesome. I think together, our tribe can really, really make a difference. I'm asking again for your support. Thank you. We will see you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.